June 10th, 2025 meeting of the Edenton Town Council to order. Our first order of business is a pledge of allegiance. If you'll stand and join me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Bond, as is our custom, we welcome you to give us an invocation.
I try, sir. Everybody stand, could we bow our heads? Oh, Heavenly Father, we come to thee this afternoon to say thank you. Thank you for blessing us to see another beautiful day that you provided us with your love and mercy. Please give the chamber here, the council, a chance to do their jobs, to do what's best for Edenton, to improve it, to keep it clean, to make it safe, and try to please all the citizens within Edenton. Oh, Heavenly Father, I want to ask for a special blessing for the Carson family. I missed it. I was at funerals. Our brother lost his sister. Please bless his family and look upon them. And also our mayor lost his mother-in-law. Please bless these two families and keep them in your prayers. And keep that change strong. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen.
Thank you as always, Councilman Bond. Our first agenda item is public comment. We'd like to make some special comments tonight about our public comment. And we just ask the public to keep this in mind. Tonight we actually have 4 public comment sections on the agenda. Later in the agenda, there is a comment period for our budget. Later in our agenda, there is a comment period on a proposed text amendment that we will be considering. And there will also be public comment on a proposed development on Paradise Road. So this particular public comment that I'm getting ready to invite the public to speak at and during is a general public comment like we normally have for anything that's not related to the budget, not related to the text amendment, and not related to the Paradise Road proposed development. With that being said, I'd also like to limit or remind our general public that the comments are limited to 3 minutes. Let's see, Steve, Carl, or were you signed up to speak for your presentation, or you signed up to speak on a general matter?
Budget matter.
What's that?
The budget matter.
Okay, all right, so we'll call you up when we come to that. Hal Murray?
Mr. Mayor, distinguished members of the Town Council. I come to you with one simple question here, and that is, who paid for the recently installed septic and sewer system that was installed at Hayes? Was that done by the Elizabeth Van Moore Foundation, the state, or the town of Edenton? And it'd be interesting to know a ballpark figure on that. Any help on that?
Everything over there's been paid for by the Elizabeth Van Moore Foundation.
Or what?
Everything.
Ballpark, thank you very much.
No, I'm not taking what it costs. We paid for it out of private contributions.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Hal. Okay, is Jimmy Alley good? Yes. Hey, Jimmy.
Hey.
How you doing?
I got
You were
two
hiding
things.
behind the lectern.
Yeah, I got 2 or 3 things, they're short things. First
Okay.
of all, I'm gonna skip the electricity thing, I just talked to Bob and Mr. Miller, and I'm gonna get together with you sometime, and we'll go with what I was gonna ask. Second thing, I wanted to, give a personal thank you to Corey. I went to the bridge meeting they had at American Legion the other day, and my main reason of going was to try to get natural gas in that area. And they told me that Corey had already started up a conversation with them and all that, and I thank you for that. We needed that out there. direction. And the third thing, and I'm gonna make it clear right out that I don't care either way, right or left, about the new parking garage, whatever. I couldn't care less whether it does or whether it goes. I'm not for it or against it. But I will say this, Friday morning I got up at 6:45 and came downtown. I counted 17 cars on Main Street. I assumed they were from people living in apartments above the buildings and all. I did the same thing this morning, there were 16, okay? Years ago when I was on town council, we bought Jackson's TV place. I know probably some of the older people probably remember it, but to make parking places for that, for, you know, the people that work downtown and all that. This morning I come out to sit kind of in front of your building, Hackney, and I counted 16 cars, and it's just set from 7 till 9. And I saw 6 cars pull up, people pull into places, get out, the keys in the hand, go to the building, open the building, go to the building. You know, if we're gonna spend that kind of money for parking garage, I feel like personally we need to get the business people downtown, the people up over the apartments to go to the back parking places, to leave room for the customers and tourists that, you know, that's what they were intentionally for. I don't think it's the town's place to sponsor or to provide parking places on Main Street for downtown businesses, or for business owners, or for people in apartments. And that's just a comment. I thank y'all, thank you for your time. And Corey, I will get up with you sometime next meeting, so.
Thank you for being
Thank
here.
you.
Thank you very much. Next, John Grant.
Mr. Mayor, Ms. Ingles didn't get a chance to sign up, she needed to speak, so I'm gonna let her go ahead and go in front of me.
Okay, Susan, come on forward.
Thank you. I'm Susan Ingalls, I'm 101 East Water Street. And I am rising to comment on the balloon ban ordinance that was continued from last month's meeting. And I know you don't have room on your agenda for it now. And I know you know that there is a state ban that likely will be passed eventually, but it didn't make cutoff. I suggest that our town can show leadership in enacting this, adopting this balloon ban ordinance. Plastic pollution is insidious. It goes everywhere. Plastic is lightweight. It is toxic to us and other life on the planet. And we can show leadership by getting rid of this one small source of plastic pollution here. So I invite y'all to do it.
Thank you, Susan. Okay, JD?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As many of you know, I serve on the Board of Adjustment here in Edenton. And recently we had a case come before us where another committee in town had a tie vote. And apparently the way it goes is if it's a tie vote, it automatically fails. I would just encourage town council to find some means of breaking the ties, or if that's not possible, to allow the petitioner to come back again and not have to pay double. Because if they come to the Board of Adjustment and we determine that it needs to go back to be heard properly, then that person's paying money again and again and again. I just don't think that's right.
Thank you, JD.
Which case is that?
The particular case that I'm speaking of that came before the Board of Adjustment was Mr. Berg's here.
Okay, I do not see anybody else on the list, so thank you very much for providing us your public comment on those specific items.
Mr.
We
Hyde,
next,
could I get 30 seconds of my talk?
yes,
Okay.
I thought you were going to speak on the budget.
I
This is,
am. The other 2.5 minutes on that one.
no, if you're going to speak on the budget.
No, I'm not speaking on the budget.
Okay,
Okay.
I got you.
The
Come
Joe
forward.
Edenton Environmental Group is going to be doing a presentation today. We worked with Corey and a researcher to actually look at the nutrient flow into Chowan Bay. And it's going to be kind of technical to some extent, but we're really active volunteers, concerned about the water quality in our area, and we work with Corey and the town council with that support. So when that comes up, I'm going to sleep.
Thank you, Mr. Carl. The next agenda item is the public hearing on the 25-26 budget proposal, and by law, I'm supposed to open that particular hearing. I'm so ready to hear from people on the budget. Excuse me, and thank you, Corey. The next agenda item are special items or special presentation items. The first one is from Snapback, and we've got Courtney Briley, and also we've got Mitchell Wynn here tonight. And we thank y'all for being here, and come up and make your presentation.
Good evening, Town Council and members of Edenton. I'm Courtney Briley
Mitchell Wynn.
and Mitchell Wynn. We are both the owners and operators for Snapback NC. We have been located in Edenton since January of 2023 by 100% the support of the town and the businesses that want to promote mental health and support services for individuals that struggle. The town has been supporting us since day one. The town has provided financial support as well as just community support and rallying around us. Even from the day we opened our doors to the 5K, our first 5K that we did last year, that I want to say before I jump into this was a huge success. We raised almost $10,000 for our very first 5K. We had a lot of people that traveled to Edenton to run in that 5K that had never seen one put together so well, which kind of boosted my ego just a little bit because I was flying in the dark and had no idea what I was doing. But the town of Edenton, the police department, who had just stepped in at that point last year, it was amazing. So I really want to make sure I highlight that. I'm just going to go over a little bit about what Snapback is for those of you here that don't know what we are, and then I'm going to get into real quick just where the money that we get from grants and funding and sponsorships and donations, where that actually goes right back here into our community. A little bit about us. Our mission for Snapback is to change the stigma of the population that struggles with not just substance use and alcoholism, but also mental illness. We aim to bridge the gap between the individual and the needed support for them and their families. We provide peer support, community resources by having weekly support groups, therapeutic services, educational workshops. Also working with the community to connect the family to other resources such as employment, continuing education. COA has been a big thing, Regulator Marine, Jimbo Jumbos. A lot of businesses locally have been very, very supportive in making sure that we're rallying around and then kind of encompassing individuals that are seeking support, not just for therapeutic resources, but a better quality of life. We link individuals to higher levels of care if needed. We've gotten people into inpatient treatments, detox centers, sober living transitions, long-term sober living facilities across the state, psychiatric medication management. We also work with the individual, not just themselves, but the family. We look at long-term goals. I tell individuals when they come into my office for an intake all the time, I'm not here to tell you how to get better. I'm not here to tell you how to get clean, how to get sober. What I'm here is to find out what quality of life you want, and let's work together to come up with a treatment plan to get you there.
And it's growing.
Yeah.
In one perspective, as I was telling the council, Turner, that in one perspective it's sad, but in another perspective we're glad to have the service available for people that's in need, that need that. So we thank you for that support there.
Absolutely. These are just a little bit of facts. I know they may appear to be outdated, but all of you know when it comes to a community needs assessment or statistics, it takes a couple years for those statistics to come back around. Most recently, 59.3 million people, that is a little over 21% of the U.S. population that are ages 12 and older, have used illicit drugs within the last year. We're not talking about marijuana. We're talking about cocaine, methamphetamine, fentanyl, opioids, alcohol, stimulants, misusing prescription drugs. We're talking about stuff outside of marijuana. 23.5 million people in the U.S. age 18 and above are in recovery currently. That number is staggering compared to how many people struggle with addiction, and not just addiction, but also with mental health. 11.2% of those that are struggling in the US, 11% are actually accessing treatment. In North Carolina, statistics of overdoses resulting in death went 40% up from 19 to 20. A lot of that, I'm not gonna lie, statistics show had a lot to do with COVID. A whole lot to do with COVID. As of 2020, and I did check this right before I left just to make sure, this state alone is averaging 9 deaths per day. Per day.
Is that drugs?
Huh?
Is that alcohol or drugs? Or both?
Combination of both. 9 deaths per day. A study provided by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services states around 14% of behavioral health treatment facilities, and when I talk about behavioral health, I'm not talking about just mental health. Behavioral health includes your substance use, your addiction, all of the above. Around 14% of treatment facilities in the U.S. are in rural communities. We don't have the services. We just don't.
And this services is actually, you know, it was done back in 2020, it was the last, so we can only imagine what it's going to be for the next time. This was 7-year increments, so they actually give it the reading.
So I am a North Carolina certified peer support specialist. That is what I do. I specialize in substance use and alcoholism. Peer support, a lot of people haven't heard of it. It's a new service that came across the board probably about 5-6 years ago. It is only a Medicaid billable service. Private insurances do not cover it. I know the VA has been voting on it for the last 4 years, but it's flopped. So if you don't qualify for Medicaid, which we're going to talk about in a second, a lot of people don't. Single parents who are out here working, you know, they don't qualify. They make too much money. They're right at that cusp. How do they get that support? Peer support, according to research by the Mental Health of America, peer support empowers people to make the best decisions for them and to strive towards their goals in their communities. We get them involved here. I know that I've worked with Corey in the past on clients that wanted to come in and speak and talk about their concerns and some of the things that they see within the community. We want them to be an integral part of the town of Edenton, not just someone that's coming here to get better. We want them to be productive and to give back to the community. Every client that walks in my door, every single one of them, I have the conversation. In order to get licensed to do what I do, first off, you've got to have that 1 year clean. Then we talk about getting you in. There are scholarships that we can get them in to training so that they can be certified. Business is growing, I need more of them. But that way they can be certified so that they can give back to their community too. Research shows that people that struggle with mental illness, substance use, and alcoholism relate better to someone who has lived experience, not a degree on the wall. I do have a degree. It's not hanging in my office. And it's not hanging in my office because I don't want people to think that I don't know what they're going through and I haven't been where they're at. Some of the benefits for peer support: it improves the quality of life, it improves engagement and satisfaction with services. Peer support has shown that more people relate and participate and actively engage in peer support than they do traditional therapy. It improves the whole health, including chronic conditions like diabetes. Most people that struggle with substance use or alcoholism also have a co-occurring disorder. They are usually running from something, they're self-medicating, or they're trying to escape from the reality of what's going on in their life. Peer support also decreases hospitalizations and inpatient days. A lot of my clients, if they need detox, because I don't want something bad happening while I'm working with them, we do detox first. That's a 7-day program. We work directly with Port Health. We transport them there. We let them be medically detoxed in a safe environment. And then when they get out, we case manage to make sure that the services continue outside of that. There have been very few that we have sent off or taken to long-term treatments. Peer support gives them the ability to still be able to work, participate in their community, be a parent, and be productive. It also reduces the overall cost of services. Peer support is a great thing because it's in addition to. Every client that I service and that Snapback sees, we get them in with medication management if they need it. We have them in therapy. It's not just a one and done. I'm not a therapist. That's not what I do. I help you rebuild your life. But I'm not going to sit there and ask you how that makes you feel. Not everybody's at that point yet.
That's my field.
That's what he does. All right. All right, Medicaid reimbursement rate. I talked about peer support is only a Medicaid billable service. I just wanted to give you guys a little breakdown before I showed where the funds go, just so you know what the cost of treatment is in relation to if anyone has ever been to a therapist and had to pay out of pocket. Minimum per hour is going to be $1.85 easy. As of 2025, the rates for peer support actually went down. It averages $50.04 per hour. Medicaid allows me 4 hours a week for each client, which is amazing. I try not to use all 4 hours just in case there is a crisis, because we do help with the crisis providing as well. So 4 hours a week, that's $200.16. For the month, $800.64. One full round of service per client is a 90-day period, is a little over $2,000. Other services that Snapback offers, we are now doing outpatient mental health counseling, pastoral counseling, couples and marriage counseling, family counseling. We still do our weekly peer support groups, and we are also doing anger management as well. These last two on this, just to kind of highlight because it does affect our community. Our weekly peer support groups and our anger management is a service that is widely used by our local law enforcement. I work diligently hand in hand every single day with probation. These people that are transitioning into the transition house here in town or coming out of the system and are on probation, they need help. They need the services. The courts are now able to order these services. Probation is now sending them to us, and we're able to bridge that gap, not just for probation, but also for the legal system. How many individuals and families have we served? I'm going to be honest, I got a big smile when I was doing these numbers, because this is why Mitchell and I started. This is why we do what we do. In 2024, we served 119 clients through peer support, support groups, counseling, and community resource connection. The bad part is out of 119 of those, 54 were supported 100% by the help of grants, donations, and support from the town of Edenton. They either didn't qualify for Medicaid, they made too much money, or they weren't in a position to where they were able to finance it by themselves. So we were able to bridge that gap with the help of you guys.
It's not included in the pro bono.
You're not gonna talk about that. I don't turn it away. I don't. If you need help and you want help, we're gonna figure out a way to get you help. And we'll go to the board of directors and we'll discuss, the need, but we're gonna figure out a way to get you help.
Right.
People that want help and want to get better, why should I turn them away because they don't have $50.04? I can't do that. It's not fair, not regular in our community. I did not do my coloring very well on that slide, excuse me. Currently, our caseload, 70% of who we're seeing is peer support alone. They're joining our weekly support groups, they're doing anger management, they're in my office 2 to 3 days a week. 10% right now is marriage and couples, that is Mitchell's forte. Pastoral counseling is 20%, that is also Mitchell's forte. I'm not nice, my clients will tell you, I shoot it straight. You want to get clean, I will go 100% for you. You want to get better, but if you ain't doing the work, I'm not going to sit there and fall apart over it. Sorry, I know that sounds harsh, but my clients will tell you, Courtney don't play around. But they stick with me and they keep coming back. And I do hear from clients on the daily, so-and-so sent me here and they said you were great. So apparently I'm doing something right. But we've got a lot of success stories. I know, we did an article last year with the newspaper about some recent, we've got a lot of people that are driving that train and they want a better life and they're pushing it. So thank you to you guys for making sure we were part of the budget.
Anticipate any problems with the Medicaid reimbursement rate?
A little bit. We are a provider for all of the Medicaid, so we have Trillium, WellCare, United Healthcare, AmeriHealth, Healthy Blue. Trillium, we just got as of February. I have been working on soliciting that contract for 3 years, but they're a closed behavioral network. We are the only provider that provides peer support in our area for them. The ranges mess us up so much. 2 years ago when we started this, it was $52 an hour. Some Medicaids will pay $47 an hour. Some of them will only pay $36. So what I gave you is an average of all of them. We don't look so much at the numbers as we look at the people that need the help.
As far as the anticipation, yes, we are anticipating, but in direct answer, we don't know exactly what. So we are just taking it day by day. Yes.
Any more questions or comments? Patrick?
Very happy to hear that you're involved with the court system. How long have y'all been working with them?
Our very first client in January of 2023 came directly from
Yes.
probation. We have met with Judge Harris
Right.
when we first opened to kind of get the situation out. The probation officers, I'll be honest, they're our biggest billboard and our marketing when it comes to the courts.
And when we first started, we wasn't totally credentialed with every aspect that they need. So now we have that.
And I do work with Task. A lot of my referrals come from Task as a referral source. In fact, our local Task, he's actually coming in town next week, and we're all gonna meet together with probation to kind of see what kind of, there's some gaps. There's some gaps that need to be addressed majorly, not just in this area, I mean, it's across the entire state. So we're trying to navigate how we can.
All right, and Judge Harris covers 7 counties, Chowan being one of them. Are probation officers in other counties, maybe like Perquimans, where they don't have anything, or y'all getting referrals from them too?
I've gotten a few from Perquimans. A lot of them come because of Mr. Beal with Task, kind of bridging that gap. I've gotten quite a few from Bertie and Ahoskie. And I've even, in the past couple of weeks, I've gotten a couple of referrals from Dare and Curry Tuck. Just to elaborate a little bit, so just to kind of put it in perspective, peer support is a community-based service. So Medicaid allows me to go into the home and into the community because transportation is an issue. Which is why our location is kind of central to what we do, because people are able to access it. Traveling, I mean, it is what it is. If a client, I had one client today that literally rode their bicycle from Chowan Beach here for their appointment today. Because she didn't know, if I don't have transportation, all I gotta do is say something. So we're able to bridge that gap too, which is great.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Courtney Mitchell, thank you so much for
Absolutely.
the work
Thank
you're
you,
doing.
guys.
We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Our next special presentation comes from the Edenton Chowan Environmental Group. We've got Colleen Carl here. Steve, are you going to come support her and talk to us?
She's good at talking.
Okay. Thank you for
I
being
don't
here,
know if Steve
Colleen.
said it all, so that's okay. But good evening to all of you, and I'm glad that everybody is here. And Steve is right, this will be a very technical presentation, but I'm very pleased and excited that we've spent an entire year with Dr. Chris Osborne and Dr. Nathan Hall at UNC, Chris is at NC State, working on a problem that I think has been near and dear to our hearts for a number of years. Since 2015, the CEG has actually focused our work on what the problem is with the algal blooms in the area. And I will say that we're learning, I talked to the board the other day and I said, I felt like after 10 years that we've actually made some progress. We've actually learned a lot. And we're actually now understanding more where we can maybe mitigate and where we can make some moves that would improve for the area. So last fall, we sat down with the town of Edenton and talked a little bit about a proposal that we had in mind, and actually it was Chris's idea to talk with Corey a little bit about what might be coming into Edenton Bay in terms of nutrients and other things, and how that might be affecting the algal blooms that have popped up in Edenton Bay. So as we talked through that, we realized that there's a couple of big tributaries that feed into Edenton Bay: Queen Anne's Creek, Gilbert's Creek, and of course Pembroke. And so we focused, because it's a lot of work to look at all three of those. And so initially we said, well, maybe we'll just do one, and we decided on two. So we took our work to Queen Anne's Creek and Gilbert's Creek, and we spent most of the year sampling 2 or 3 times a month, especially after rainy periods, looking at what kinds of things might be coming from those creeks way upstream and making its way down into the bay from that. And the analysis of this is pretty interesting, and as Chris is going to explain to you some of the techniques that we've used to help understand what's happening in this area, will help drive the decisions that are made locally about what needs to be mitigated to help offset these issues. So I'm going to, oh, I've got a clipper, let me get that for you, thank you. So really quickly here, I've used this word CCRG up there. This is our 5th Community Collaborative Research Grant. And these are opportunities that are provided through North Carolina Sea Grant and the Water Resources Institute to provide monies to local groups in partnership with university researchers to do work in communities where there are questions that remain unanswered. And so we've done a lot of our work with water quality, some of it with air quality, but still related indirectly to water quality. As we've gone through this, that picture was from a couple of years ago, right off the Edenton dock, right off the boat launch down here. So, you know, we've seen the water be pretty green, and actually it's started already. I mean, we have satellites now that look at that. We had reports the other day on Facebook about people starting to see green stuff in the water. And so, you know, it's that time of year, and it's getting hot out there, and so we're gonna start seeing that stuff as we go along. So as I mentioned, we focused our work, is that going? Okay, there we go. As we focused our work on looking at the nutrient values, and also as Chris is going to talk about the organic nitrogen that's coming into the tributary, from two tributaries into Edenton Bay. And we sampled all year long, a couple times a month, depending on the rainfall. And we had, if y'all recall, last fall was really dry for about 3 months. So there's a big lack in the data there because there just wasn't any rain. And a lot of the stuff comes right out of those swampy areas and way upstream after there is a substantial rain. And so then that changed in January. We had a whole lot of rain, and some snow too, as I recall. So you guys will recognize these sites, and just from left to right, you can see that the first site that we looked at is the outflow from all of the street runoff. And so we popped the top out of that and took a sample right from that little well there. I wanted to see what was coming from all of our street runoff. So that was an interesting site. Right across from that is Queen Anne's Creek, from going over the bridge to Hayes. And so we were on the side that was going up Queen Anne's Creek down into the bay. So we took our sample on that Queen Anne's Creek side. And the third side up there is behind the condominiums that are behind the Cotton Mill Village there. And so we got permission over there to take a site and pull a sample out of one of those little minor tributaries that's part of Queen Anne's Creek. I mean, there's several streams that feed into that main tributary. The next one is one that I had never seen before, Paxton Lane. And if you've ever been down this road, you go way down at the end, and there's farms down there, and there's a good-sized tributary down there that is, when it's high water, it's really high water. But anyhow, we sampled there as well. The middle site there in the middle is, and this one too, that you kind of drive by and don't even notice that it's there, but this is across from the peanut businesses. It's a little stream as you go down Old Hertford Road. Sometimes there's barely a trickle in there, and sometimes it's just rushing through there. So it's way high up on Queen Anne's Creek, but that's still part of Queen Anne's Creek. Number 6 there is actually switch over to Filbert's. So that is in front of the medical center, Vine Medical Center there, where the doctor's offices are at, and coming across from Food Line, a little ways down there. And then the next site there is on Martin Luther King Boulevard, our road there, and then number 8 up there is down at the outflow of Filbert's Creek where it meets like Edenton Bay. And the last one is the town dock, which you're all familiar with. So we try to sample a bit of each one, and those last 4 are Filbert's, the first 5 are Queen Anne's Creek. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris and Nathan, and they're going to show you a little bit about what we found out this year and some very interesting results as we went through them and looked at all the data and stuff. And I guess, can you turn that over to the map, I guess? There we go.
Hello, everyone.
Okay.
My presentation, am I going to be able to share my presentation, or do you have it pulled up there?
Yeah.
I have it ready here.
He's got it.
Chris, we're getting a lot of,
Okay.
Yeah, what slide? Want me to advance it, please? Got it. Do I need to move these for Chris? Okay. Chris, you'll need to tell me when you need to advance the slide, okay?
Okay, yeah, I can do that. All right, well, hello everyone, and it's nice to see you. I'm sorry you can't see me and I can't be there, but I really want to reiterate what Colleen shared about how this is such a critical type of project that Sea Grant funds to allow us that work on the science side to be able to try and deploy our solutions to help communities understand what some of their nutrient problems might be. And so I'm going to talk about the technology behind what we've done to look at organic nitrogen in the 2 tributaries that Colleen provided. And then just to acknowledge Colleen as the community PI, and then Corey from the town of Edenton, and then
Dr. Nathan Hall, who you'll hear from shortly. Next slide, please. I'm sitting here tapping on my keyboard, not getting a response. Okay, so what organic nitrogen is a little bit different than the kind of nitrogen and phosphorus you usually hear about. So you think of nitrogen, most people think of like nitrate or ammonium, and that's stuff that we give to plants and makes them grow. Well, organic nitrogen is similar. It obviously has nitrogen in it, but it has a lot of different varieties to it. And so understanding how those different varieties may or may not contribute to cyanobacteria blooms, so that algal growth, and then the possible initiation of harmful algal blooms is an ongoing question that we're still trying to answer. And the trick has been trying to determine or fingerprint these different types of organic nitrogen sources. And so that was the project aim. Next slide, please. So the work that we did, we went out and we investigated these sources. We took a number of samples, as Colleen mentioned. We made a number of measurements that you can see there. So we looked at the nitrate, nitrite, ammonium, organic nitrogen, and phosphate. And then the last point here I want to mention is that we were comparing what we considered wet and dry conditions. And the way that we distinguish between those is that if we had more than 1 inch of antecedent precipitation or the cumulative rainfall in the 3 days prior to sampling. Next slide, please. So the technology here, we call this floor mod, and this tells us where the organic nitrogen comes from. So the way that this kind of tool works is it's basically a regression model. And what a regression model is it takes something that's unknown and it matches it against something that's known. And so the something that's known is what we call this dictionary of different sources. So you might have organic nitrogen coming from a wetland, or you might have it coming from a septic system, or even from agricultural sources. So we have this really big dictionary of all these different sources. So what the tool does then is that it matches your unknown sample that you've just taken against that dictionary, and then it basically tells you how good the fit of the model was. And you can see the next to last point there, we have a really good and efficient model. And we also have determined that the estimates for contributions are relevant if they're greater than 3%. So that's kind of the cutoff there. All right, next slide, please. So what's behind FloorMod? What do we use for the fingerprints? We use something called fluorescence, and you can see the little cartoon on the right here shows you basically what happens. So we shine a light on a water sample, and then there's some light that's given off that an instrument can measure. You can't really see it with your eyes, but in any case, what happens is we can use that to create these fingerprints. And in the red box down at the bottom, you can see that we've got 3 sort of natural sources. So Piedmont upstream river, wetlands like the forested swamps, and that border much of the town and the region, and soil. So when soil is eroded into water, then it releases some of this organic nitrogen as well. And then you can see there's a whole host of contaminant sources there. Most prominently, I'll point out, are septic, sewage, street runoff, and wastewater treatment plant effluent. The swine and poultry are not important for this project. Next slide, please. So this is an example of what these fingerprints look like. We call these eames, but if you look at them, the 6 like cartoon-looking plots on the left, you can see that they kind of all look the same, but there's some subtle differences there. And while visually, if we had to just take and imagine what a mix of these sources would look like, that would be pretty tough. But we worked on this technique that uses this regression that I mentioned. And the output of that analysis is the little picture on the bottom right. And so that says how representative the sources are in an unknown sample. So what the tool does, what FloorMod does, is it spits out a percentage of what the unknown sample would be in how much of each category would be in that unknown sample. So that table down at the bottom right, you're seeing just a snapshot of some output. We've got the sample name, so that's an unknown sample that we took, and we want to know like how much of all these different sources are in that one sample. So you can see there in this list, this table, this sort of list of results that across all the samples you can see there, the biggest one that's most prominent is the wet one. But you can also see street runoff, septic, soil, and that sort of thing are the most prominent types of sources here. So let's look at some results. Next slide, please. The study sites, again, Colleen showed you pictures of them. We had Queen Anne's Creek and Filbert's Creek, and then the town dock. We also pulled the weather data from the State Climate Office. Next slide, please. We also sampled Bennett's Mill Pond, but next slide you can skip through that. But I wanted to make sure and identify for folks the 4 sites that I'll show results from. So there's 2 on Queen Anne's Creek. You can see 4Q at the top right, and then 3Q kind of at the bottom center there, and then 6F at the top kind of left, and then 8F at the middle left there in those red circles. So we'll go through each one, and I will identify which it is, because I know the audience doesn't know what 3Q actually means or anything like that. So next slide, please. Okay. So this is what the rainfall looked like, and just to give you a sense, so what we're looking at is on the top axis there, these dates. Those are the dates of samplings that we had. So we had 12 total samplings for the project. 5 of them met that wet criteria, and 7 were the dry periods. Colleen mentioned that we had an extensive dry period during this project. So the criterion of more than 1 inch of rain in the 3 days prior to sampling meant that we had 5 wet conditions to compare against the dry conditions. So you're going to see this graph at the top of the results in the subsequent graphs that I'll show. So the next slide, please. So the first site is that 4Q, that's Queen Anne's Creek and Paxton Lane. And next slide, please. And so here are the results for Paxton Lane. So the bottom graph is just showing like different colors with the longer the colored bar, the more prominent the source is. And so if you look at the very bottom here, you can see the key, so the color code here. So this the dark brown, which you can kind of see at the bottom of this plot, a number of these had dark brown. That's that soil. That comes from again, just sort of a natural source. It tends to be elevated with erosion. But what you're seeing here is that Paxton Lane is mostly dominated by that wetland signal. But you can see the other colors, like the gray color, for example. That's street runoff. The green color is septic, and then the orange is sort of like this upland, very small amount of kind of the upland river signal. So most of what we're seeing, by and large, is coming from the wetlands surrounding the stream within the creek's corridor there. But you can also see prominently that there are some additional runoff and other non-point signals here. And this is going to be kind of the same story through the other ones, but we'll take a look anyways and see other examples. So next slide, please. So now we're moving further downstream. We're closer to the bay here. This is at that site behind the Mill Village condos. So next slide, please. And you can see again here, wetlands dominant, but look at the gray pops up a bit more. So it's a more urbanized region there. It's closer to the road. And what we're seeing is a bit more of the street runoff, and you can see also some more prominent signals of the septic in there. Next slide, please. So now we'll move over and look at Filbert's Creek. This is near the ECU Family Medicine Center. Next slide. Again, the wetlands are prominent here, and that's sort of, the background. You can see the gray with the runoff signal, and then the green with the septic, but then there's also this effluent signature. And that's an interesting point. So why would it match an effluent? This is from a wastewater treatment plant. This probably is a result of septic or other kind of sewage signals having some amount of transformation to them. So we're still trying to understand what would be driving that pattern. But what's most important to see is that these non-point sources are very prominent in the creek at that site, as opposed to the more natural sources of that are dominated by the wetland. Next slide, please. And so now we're moving down to the last one we'll look at here at 8F. This is on just off of Queen Street across from the Freeze. Next slide. And so you can see here that at that site, towards closer to Edenton Bay, Filbert's Creek is mostly dominated by the wetland, but proximate to that road, you see a lot of the street runoff with some more minor sources of septic over the course of study here. Next slide, please. So I will just wrap up at this point and say that what are our findings is that most of the non-point sources of nutrients, of organic nitrogen that we would see are due to septic and street runoff. These are common problems with stormwater, but also with leaky systems, leaky sewer pipes, that sort of thing would exfiltrate some of that signal that would match septic that we would detect in our model. During the dry periods, this is pretty interesting. We saw a lot of the sources persist during the dry periods. And what we're interested in understanding is how that accumulation of material, so it might kind of sit there and stew with all these sources mixed together, and then after a rain event, that it gets flushed out, but that's the stuff that's being flushed into Edenton Bay. So future work will hopefully help us understand if that contributes to the initiation of these blooms in some manner, and specifically if it's a bloom that then becomes like a harmful algal bloom. We only saw small amounts of street runoff at the town dock site, and I didn't show you those results, but what I can say about that is that that's kind of interesting because it also notes that, at town dock there's while you have the creeks flowing in, there's a substantial amount of dilution that likely occurs because those creeks are smaller. And we would expect that tends to vary, the town dock measurements tend to vary quite a bit with the precipitation as well. So I will stop there, and I'm happy to answer any questions or anything else. And thanks very much for allowing me to present.
Thank you. I think we have one councilman that has a question.
So,
Skip that.
I don't know whether you can.
I got the finding.
Do we need buffers around these farms that are, when you say wetland runoff, is that runoff from the fields into the wetlands? Is that what that means? I didn't quite understand that.
Chris, you want to direct that? I think you talk about Paxton Lane area and some of those.
Well,
areas.
and Queen Anne's Creek, because it's
Sure,
running off the
Queen
Hayes
Anne's
fields
Creek, yeah.
and.
Yeah. You want to answer that one, Chris?
Yeah, so just think about it as the riparian wetlands, and so those are the ones that are in the floodplain next to these streams. So that whole, if you have Queen Anne's Creek, if you look on that Google map images, it's basically sitting in a bottom hardwood forest, swampy area, and so that's what's generating that signal.
And so how would we buy, conservation easements? I mean, what source of funding could we find to buy conservation easements on these farms so that you have, wide buffers? I mean, is there a source, or could we work towards finding a source?
Yeah, I think we can. I think that's a look-see. It's a difficult period right now, as you well know. I mean, a lot of the grant money has been sort of locked up, and that might, unleash itself over time, but you're right about that. I wanted to add to Chris's presentation, something that I should have said earlier, but this is the first time that we've been able to see really by fingerprints, by percentages, what some of these specific things are, these signals that are coming into the creeks, which is really advanced technology. I mean, you can get nutrient numbers to galore. And the contention now, a lot of the papers out there, the research that's happening is that a lot of these algal blooms are starting way up creek. You don't see them. You don't even look at those little ditches as you drive by, but eventually they all, when get a heavy rainfall, they make their way down creek, and then the stuff is there for them to just go wild, bloom. They will. And so, it's great that we've been able to partner with him. Now, Nathan did all the nutrient analysis on this, and so that data also is complementary. I know that spreadsheet has been sent to Corey. He's had a chance probably to look it over. It's pretty extensive. I know I spent a while looking at it too, but I'm very pleased to be able to say that, part of that work is essential. You just don't want to spend your money wastefully. I mean, you want to do it wisely. So this is the kind of research we need to be able to make those good decisions. And you bring up a really good point about how can we mitigate some of those areas, how can we get those buffer zones bigger. That's something we need to talk about. Where can we look? I mean, what are some of the big offenders? When Chris and I talked about this presentation, we talked about kind of showing the ones that were there's something jump off the data sheet at. So the 4 that he's picked are sort of the ones that stood out as being, okay, there's something going on here, especially with some affluent and things like that there. So, yeah, some things to look at for sure.
I would love to get Johnson and I talking about it.
Mr.
Funding source.
Yeah.
The good thing is, almost all, well, no, a major portion of what we saw is a result of where we live. We have all these swamps, with all this tannic water that's caused by just leaf debris and natural stuff. And that's basically all of that big center area that we saw on all those maps. It's natural.
Right. I mean, but there are some things that we could certainly do better, and I think that we all are interested in that. I can remember 2015 when Edenton Bay was green for about 3 months, it seemed. So we don't want to have a repeat of that. We have seen it in little spurts here and there, but it seems to go away. And that is predicated by the rainfall amount and the other weather patterns that we get into the area as well. So this year's been an interesting year. We had a lot of rain since January, a lot of snow too. So there's a lot of stuff that's in the water right now. It'll be really interesting to see what happens with the algal blooms this year. I thank Chris for sharing from Raleigh, and I know Nathan, you're there too, right? Maybe not. Anyhow, he's from UNC.
Colleen, I've got a question.
Sure.
I remember 2015. Are things getting better, or is it just luck of the draw we've not had another 2015?
Yeah, well, that's a tough question. I think it's the luck of the draw, okay? I think our weather patterns are really substantial. There's enough literature out there. I look at a lot of this, it says it seems to follow these patterns of really massive blooms seem to follow periods of really big tropical depressions and hurricanes that hit the area. So kind of look, we had 2015, 2017, 2019, those were all really bad years, and then it got kind of quiet for a while. And so I think that, we don't really know. We haven't had any major tropical depressions or storms in this area since then. Now, I know, knock on wood. But I think that some of our rainfall is sufficient. I mean, when we get I remember when was it, last August, the streets were overflowing at Edenton. I mean, we get 10 inches in a short period of time. That's not too helpful in terms of flushing out stuff. And Steve's right, some of that stuff that comes out of the swamps is good stuff, it's good nutrients, but that still is fuel for the algal blooms for sure. Yeah. So I appreciate everybody listening tonight. It is a very technical presentation, but we're pleased to be a part of that and to maybe help answer some questions.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Appreciate your work.
Carl? Can anybody hear me? This is Nathan Hall.
Guess he's still there. Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Nathan, are you there?
I am here. Yeah, this is Nathan Hall from UNC.
Did you want
If y'all can hear me, I'd just like to make this will be a 30-second comment.
go for it?
You can hear me?
Yes.
All I
Yes.
want to say is this research that's been done, this project is feeding this bigger picture of the Albemarle Sound bloom problem. It's not just the Chowan River, Edenton Bay. It's bigger than that. The amount of algae in Albemarle Sound is about 3 times higher now than it was 20 years ago. And
We're trying to understand what's going on. And when you're looking for nutrients coming into somewhere, you usually look where the water comes from. And in Albemarle Sound, it comes from the Chowan River. Most of it comes from the Roanoke River. And the nutrient loads coming down from Virginia and the Chowan River and what's coming in on Roanoke River haven't changed much. But what we're learning is that the small streams that drain directly into the Chowan River and Albemarle Sound have really high nutrients. And this project is another one of these small projects that is continuing to add evidence to that conclusion. And it's good and bad. It's good because it means that it's not a Virginia problem. It's not a Western North Carolina problem. It's a local problem, potentially. And that means that local actions can make a difference. So that's it. That may have been 40 seconds. I apologize.
Thank you, Nate.
Thanks, Nathan.
Yep.
Thank you all again. Thank you for being here tonight. Our next special presentation, we have Ryan Shook here. Ryan is the Bridge Program Manager for NCDOT Division 1, and he is here to provide counsel and the general public with an update for the bridge replacement project for Pembroke Creek Bridge along West Queen Street. So Ryan, thank you for being here. I know this is a hot topic, judging from the number of phone calls and stops I've gotten on the street. So thank you for being here tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Just say good evening to everybody, and I appreciate the opportunity to come present about this. So the project number here is BR0183. We refer to it as Chowan Bridge number 2. It's over Pembroke Creek on US 17 business on West Queen. So here's just a picture of the bridge. I think everybody's pretty familiar with it, but what we're doing now is in the preliminary engineering stages, and we're looking at options for replacing the bridge. And with that, we started looking at the surrounding areas and the community and everything. So with this bridge, at each of the 4 corners, we have several things going on. We've got Pembroke Creek Park, which was bought with a Clean Water Trust Fund. Money across the creek from that is a coastal wetland, which is in a conservation easement. Edenton Marina has some historical significance, and it's eligible from the State Historic Preservation Office has looked at that, and then also we have the fish hatchery and the townhomes on the other adjacent corner. The fish hatchery is also historically eligible and significant. So with that, we're trying to find the best options for this bridge replacement. And so what we've got is we're looking at 2 alternatives. The primary purpose of the project is to replace the structurally efficient bridge. And so that's what it's deemed. It gets inspected every 2 years, which all bridges do. And that's a federal mandate, and they get scored, and they look at, superstructure, substructure, the pilings, the girders, the deck, those types of things, and the state of those, and how the ratings take place. The secondary purpose of the project is we're also looking at the bike and ped accommodations with that, and learning a little bit about the East Coast Greenway through this project is that it comes through Edenton, and West Queen Street is one of the locations that it comes through. So I'll talk a little bit about the structural efficiency of the bridge, and this is just a quick overview of that. The superstructure is a 4 out of 9, so anything below a 5 is deemed structurally efficient. With the superstructure being like a girder system of the bridge, the substructure being pilings, which has wood pilings on it, and there it's got a 4 out of 9, and then its efficiency rating is just the overall score of the bridge, and it's got a 61 out of 100. So when we replace the bridge, we'll bring it up to the current design standards, be a little bit longer, a little bit wider, be accommodating bike and ped. As I've already spoken to a little bit about the bicycle and pedestrian accommodation, this is one of the safety concerns because it is an actively used location for both of those. uses. So we're talking about the East Coast Greenway, comes through West Queen Street, and also the NC3 Port of Calls bike route, comes along US 17 business. So this is an opportunity where we can connect those routes through the town of Edenton. So the two construction alternatives we're looking at, alternative one is an off-site detour. So what this would entail is closing the bridge to traffic, and traffic would be routed out on 32 to 17, and then back around to business 17. So we put the detour out on the bypass. To divert traffic, like this bridge being demolished and replaced. The detour is about 8 miles long, so estimating about an additional 10 minutes. And this would be the signed truck detour route. I know there are other options, for people to travel, but this is what DOT would sign as the detour. What we would look at as far as time frame and construction on this would be approximately 18 months. No, this is very early on in the planning stages, but that's our best guess right now. If we were to close it, tear out the old bridge, the new bridge back, we would be looking at 18 months, and that would also include some time for utilities. There's water and sewers connected on the bridge. That would have to be relocated, and possibly power lines that are adjacent to the bridge to offer enough of a buffer for crane swings and pile driving. And I've talked already about a detour that would go out from West Queen, out on 17 and 32, back around North Broad. And this is just a map showing the detour and where the bridge is located. Alternative two is what we call stage construction, where half of the bridge is torn out while the other half is utilized as a single lane signalized on-site detour. So traffic would be able to travel through one lane, with an alternating light, while the other side is torn out. You would construct half of the bridge, switch traffic onto the new half, and then do the same for the remaining half of the bridge. This would shift the bridge alignment approximately 13 feet to the north, and that's due to meeting the clearances and the widths for traffic and safe. You would have to put, concrete barrier rail on the bridge to protect the side that was being constructed and demoed. One of the disadvantages of this option is it does shift the alignment a little bit to the north, and also the time frame would be a little bit longer. You're building the bridge twice essentially, so what we look at when we're estimating construction time is essentially double the time. We've said 3 years here. We feel that would be worst case scenario. In a perfect world, in a perfect construction, it would be quicker, but we would rather go with a worst case scenario. To expect 3 years of construction zones with that signalized lane closure. And this is showing a little bit what that would look like, where you have your signalized lane closure with the stage construction, and you would look at approximately, say, a 5-minute wait at that light. Another thing with this is talking about the bike and ped accommodations for both alternatives. We would be looking at a 10-foot wide multi-use path, which ties in with the town of Edenton's bike and ped plan, and also that East Coast Greenway. And that would run for the length of the project, essentially from Westover, Delhi, down to Edenton Marine. So these are just some estimates of projected funding and the timeline. The construction, and this was for stage construction. Here again, we look at the worst case scenario with utilities and right of ways. And this is a little underestimated on the utilities. We're having to bore water and sewer under Pembroke Creek at approximately $12 million. The off-site detour for alternative one was around 11. So there was about $1 million difference in another year and a half time frame. So we've already had a public meeting. We had a pretty good turnout with that. And our comment period goes through June the 20th. So that was another reason to come and speak to the council tonight, just to get the word out that there still is time. Anybody can go and comment. There's a website, and I believe it was posted on the town's social media. And people can go there and leave their comments. We encourage the town to do so as well. But anyone can go there. But what we're looking at is starting right-of-way acquisition in 27, with construction beginning in 2028. And this is just summarizing the project. This is a replacement, to replace the structure of the Bishop Bridge, looking at the bicycle and pedestrian accommodations with the multi-use path, and looking at the two options. So what we're doing now is we're still in the public comment period, so we'll take public comment until June the 20th, and at that point, they essentially take all the comments into consideration, and we're already started working through the permitting process, and with having competing resources is what they're deemed at all four corners of the bridge. We're going through what's called a merger process. So we have like all the environmental stakeholders, the permitting agencies, Wildlife Resource Commission, Marine Fisheries, and we have meetings ever so often. And the next meeting will take place after all the public comments are gathered, put together, and then we can discuss those with those agencies and try to come up with a preferred alternative. But that's the most important thing, is that we receive comments from the public on this.
Okay, Brian, thank you. And I just wanted to emphasize to the public that the cutoff for comments is June 20th. And I would hope that the public comments will weigh heavily in the decision-making process. But thank you for being here tonight. Does anybody have questions or comments, Ryan?
Is any consideration given to how high it's gonna be? It would certainly be, because, the easements that are on the property just north of Albania Farm have easements to the water, so that if there was some type of public use on that property, set little sailboats and stuff, that if it was taller, it could really it could work as part of that.
Right.
So I don't know what it's hard. I grew up on that bridge, and it'd be nice to have it higher.
That's right. And so that is, funny enough, one of the comments that we get a lot of and a lot of questions on that. So the sole purpose for navigation and raising the height is not one of the main focuses of the project. But what we do look at is designing for resiliency and taking in sea level rise and these types of issues. And so some height adjustment will be taken into account for that. I hate to say how much it will be. It could be as much as a foot, but anything over a foot would be hard, to say promise. But that's what we're looking at. The other thing with that is the higher you go, so what we call is low steel, the vertical clearance underneath the bridge, we're going to at least maintain that with the hope of getting a little bit higher, if we could. But every bit that we go higher, we have to go wider. That field slope gets wider and wider. And then that can be accommodated with retaining walls and things like that, but we've got condos on one corner, we've got the park on the other, conservation easement, and the Edenton Marina. So that's what this merger process and public comment does, is we take all those things into account. So we try to maybe raise the elevation of the bridge, but at the same time, we keep the townhouses in consideration that, they've got parking, driveway access, and those types of things. So we will try to raise the elevation of it, but it wouldn't be enough for us.
I think everybody that plays out in the creek would really like that.
Absolutely.
Ryan, what is this, like a rusted iron, looks like an iron pipe that runs underneath the bridge, and I think it's on one side, and that kind of comes down lower and makes access even harder. What is that pipe? What is the purpose of that pipe?
Right, so.
And is there any way that could be put like more on the side as opposed to?
I'm thinking it's either water or sewer.
Okay.
Yeah. And I can't remember north and south side, but there's water on one side and sewer on the other. So those will, in my understanding, what we're looking at doing is a directional bore underneath the creek. The intent would be to get those utilities off the bridge, and that just makes maintenance for the bridge itself better, and just issues like that, because we call it Taste Freeze Bridge, it's got low-hanging utility lines, and those hangers become issues and different things like that. But so hopefully we would get those utilities off.
How do you relocate the utilities, or where would you relocate it to?
So they would be directional bore, underneath the creek, so essentially it's like a big drill rig. They would set up, and they drill under, and they would pull a conduit back, and then that's what the pipe would go.
So is that the perfect time to push for the natural gas? Yeah.
Corey and I talked about it a little at the public meeting, and so from a DOT perspective, we can make accommodations possibly, during the work zone, lane closure. There could even be, you could look at cost share where you've got, if there's a boring contractor already in the area doing work for us, it could be possible that Piedmont could piggyback onto that and make it, more of an incentive for them if their cost is reduced. I know we've got a project in Gates County where the utility owners got together and they essentially used the same boring contractor to lower their cost. So whether to comment on Piedmont, if it's a good time or not, their accommodations could be made for them in the work zone, and that type of thing, but we would not have any.
So see groundbreak on this 3 more years, 23 years, is that right?
That's right. That's the plan right now. Funding is available. It got pushed back a year already, just over programming, so that's the tentative schedule right now, it's 28.
Thank you again, appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I did have a question of town manager and also of us as a group. The comments are open to everyone, and so is it more proper for everyone on here to give their personal / council opinion directly to those comments? Do we take some sort of official position? How do we approach that?
I would recommend individual comments. I think that would help with the count, because there would be some type of summary when you compile all these comments. So if the same comment was made 200 times, and still another 200 people made that comment, it would be consolidated.
So if I could speak to
Yeah,
that
please
for a
do.
second. So I think the number of comments would be very important in playing into it, but from a DOT perspective, I think we would like an official comment from the town. The town of Edenton, prefers alternative. 1,
Do
2,
we have time?
whatever it is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, is that something are we subject to that June 20th deadline also?
I feel like we could get past the June 20th deadline.
Just thinking out loud, that would take action and I think deliberation. I don't think it's just something that by June 20th we can talk about it, send to them, is that?
It may be a bit heavy for a June 23rd meeting to make some kind of formal statement on behalf of the town, but we'll definitely get in that first meeting in July and already have some type of placeholder in place to let Ryan know those dates and times. And get this.
Is that gonna be okay and not
Yeah,
too
that'll be
late?
fine, because what we'll do is, it wouldn't be like on the 21st, we pick an alternative.
Okay.
So those comments would have to be gathered, we would have some internal discussions as well, and then we still have to go to our other stakeholders and have these merger meetings. And I can stay in touch with Corey on that. What I would like to have is, whenever we schedule that next merger meeting, if I could have a response, from the town, and whether it's just the town looking at different aspects, whether it's, police response, fire response, things like that play into account. The more detailed, the more comments we have, the better it will be.
Appreciate that, and I'd like to reiterate to the general public the importance of submitting your official comment to prior to June 20th, and would also encourage you to talk to your councilman or your mayor and let us know what your thoughts are. I will say that the calls that I've gotten and when I've gotten stopped out of the general public, it seems like overwhelming majority of people would like the option to keep one lane of the bridge open. So I encourage all of you to comment officially and also talk to your town councilman about that. Okay, Ryan, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate y'all being here. Thank you. The next agenda item is our public hearing on the fiscal year 25-26 budget proposal that has been available to the public at Town Hall for a little over a week now, or about a week now, is that correct, Corey? And at this time, I will open the public hearing. And this is an opportunity for the general public to step forward and make comments. These comments, like the other comments, are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. We don't have a sign-up sheet, so just whomever wishes to speak, step forward, and we'll continue to hear from you until there's no one else who wants to speak. I think, Mr. Carl, did you want to speak?
Yes.
So we'll invite you up first.
This kind of snuck up on me a little bit. I didn't hear about it until recently. The members of the town council, I'm voicing my concerns about proposed raises in the various components of the proposed budget. I have not heard why there needs to be increases. I heard a 9% raise in the electrical and a 22% raise in the water and sewage. Is that a 22% each for the water and the sewage, or a combined 22 total? As you all know, we're currently in an economic tornado with high interest rates, increasing inflation, tariffs that are going to create price increases on almost everything that we buy. This is not a time for the town to add to the financial strain of its citizens. It is time for financial constraint. Thank you.
And Mr. Carl, I think if questions could be answered quickly and easily, I think it was designed for our town manager, if he has a response, to give responses. If it requires some sort of research, obviously, we need to do that and get back in touch with you
That's
before we vote on it. Did you have anything?
I think I can speak at least on the water and sewer, and I think the electric is probably a little bit more in-depth conversation, but when you look at what was coming forward for the water and sewer rates, that's a 22% average, and that is including water and sewer rates cumulative. So, across the board, it's just one number, one placeholder, 22. You could see 18 on one side and 24 on the other, like there's some up and down. That's the average across all the rates as far as the stair step. I want to say it was.
So that water and sewer would be at 44% rates
On
the average.
The total increase would average 22% for the actual use for
So
itself.
10 and 12 thereabouts, each. If the water goes up 10, the other one will go up 12.
No, the combined delta on a typical base rate should be just over $5 increase compared to, so 20.53 base rate compared to like 25.53. So that's where that comes into play. 22% increase represents 9.7% increase due to wholesale rates. Water sales were actually almost 96 cents per 1,000 gallons under wholesale cost for us to make it. So that equates to basically half of that 22%. And then 3 debt service payments would equate to just over 10.5%. Those two combined are only 20 to 21%, and we're requesting a 22% change. So what we're increasing, we're only considering a 1% margin on top of that. So, I mean, when we talk thin, we were mindful of that.
Breaking even.
Yes. Electric, I think I can give you a better response either in person.
We
so
can talk
go
sometime.
to those questions. I think I probably have some of the same ones from Mr. Allison.
Okay.
And Mr. Carl, also on the electrical rate, one thing that's going on is we're having to pay for trying to keep that down over the years. And the local government commission, which is commissioned by the state to watch over the finances of municipalities and counties in North Carolina, and the auditor has termed our rates as unsustainable, and we're in some danger zone with the local government commission on that.
I know when I got my December bill and was shocked, and then finally realized that it was like a 42-day bill.
Yes, yeah, we got a lot of calls on that. We didn't.
I'm not sure you got all the money in one check on that one.
We heard all about that, so I certainly understand.
I understand the cost that need, you know, the basic, you're paying for what you're getting. But if there's any way of minimizing anything else that the town can do, you know, I mean, you know, there are things that could be minimized, or I'm not saying, you know, eliminated, but minimized so that, you know, minimizing costs would, you know, now's not the time to be, you know, spending.
Well, we appreciate your comments. Nothing's set in stone yet, so we'll take into consideration what you told us to.
Thank you very much.
Okay, do we have another speaker? JD, come forward.
So I just want to make sure I understood you correctly. So it's not set in stone, not all of these things are necessarily going to be purchased or. Because there were certain line items, like new vehicles, one set of supervisor vehicle for public works. Is that for the director of public works? Because I thought we just got a brand new truck.
So we need to be specific on which accounts we're looking at. When you look at some of the budgets that are here, public works is split amongst the 10 accounts and the 30 accounts. Some of these lines are historically been there, and they were not like added or removed. Pay close attention to the lines that you're questioning to see if there's actually dollar amount in the placeholder there. I do remember one of the 30 accounts having a director vehicle from 2 years ago. It was purchased, that is now just a blank.
Okay.
I mean, it's still a line there in case we needed to add something, so it wasn't removed from the budget, but pay close attention to see if there's actually a dollar amount recommended for the proposal. So there may just have been a line there for that account with no dollar amount.
Okay. And I also noticed that there were 2 requests, both the police department, fire department, and ordinance. I wouldn't encourage them any equipment, but for side-by-sides, I don't think they each need one. We can share one, and I think the town has enough golf carts they can use that instead.
We have trimmed as much as we can. We do have an increase in the amount of events that we do, so we feel like at least one could be able to carry some of the safety gear that each of these departments could have are there. I know that we removed one of the proposed side-by-sides from this budget, and we were able to find funding to actually make a purchase this year on this current year's budget that we're working through now to not impact next year's budget.
Thank you.
And to your first question, JD, right now, nothing is set in stone. I think you asked that. We're currently at the proposal stage.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any more comments? Hal, come forward.
The one number that kind of jumped out in front of me was the increase, I think it was in the yard waste. It went from 8.25 to 15, which is a 70-some% increase. I was wondering if you could say something about that. That seemed, you know, that was a big delta.
So I can speak to that. So historically, when we look at our commercial solid waste collection fee as well as our residential, the rule of thumb has typically been for trash and recycling, which the existing $8.50 per month per residential customer is sufficient. One of the things that has not been taken into consideration is the volume of time and equipment and wear and tear we have specifically around yard waste. So we equated the amount of dollars in an annual year for this past year compared to just the dedicated time that staff and equipment utilize for yard waste. It doesn't apply to commercial businesses because they pay for a landscaper to maintain that or an industrial lot. It's simply residential. And so just for us to operate 1 hour, that's $300. So when we look at a very conservative 10 hours a week to do yard waste, which is not realistic at all, the difference equates for the dollar per residential customer per year will cover that increase, which is about $150,000 a year spent just on water rates.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Any other comments? Okay, there being none, I will close the public hearing on the 25-26 budget proposal, and we next will move to case number TA 25-03, which is a proposed text amendment to the UDO. And we have Assistant Manager Dwayne Wilton here to provide the staff report and to help with any clarification on the proposed text amendment. Dwayne?
Yes, sir. Planning board met on May 5th to review on application and recommended to council a text amendment for the Unified Development Ordinance for Article 17 signs for property and residential districts used primarily for religious worship or religious education, including churches, mosques, synagogues, temples, and other religious institutions. After the last meeting, I went through and added a few more for consideration. You can see 1 through 6, and then I added some additional considerations based on other municipalities. In North Carolina, what I found is for churches and residential districts, it was all over the place. Elimination was allowed in some, others it wasn't. Square footage was for here in residential districts is, I believe it's 4 square feet. In some other municipalities, it was 32 square feet. So kind of combining similar sized municipalities and offering a couple of considerations to council to look into, including a minimum or maximum candle foot from the property and the prevention of light trespass in the residential areas. Also elimination restricts of signs as prohibited in residential districts between the hours of 10 and 6 a.m., 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., and the including of landscaping around the particular sign. So that's kind of where I was at. It was all over the place. There's nothing definitive. It would let the council kind of decide which route to go with, either to allow elimination or do not allow it, restrict the times allowable, restrict the candle lumens or candle light foots is what it's called.
Where now the illumination is non-illuminated between midnight and 6 in the morning, is that what the UDO is?
It's prohibited in residential districts right now. This proposal was to include illumination just in churches in residential districts. From what I could find.
And it's the size again, they're proposing a bigger size.
Yes.
And this would apply to every church in town.
Every church
The
in residential
Baptist, the St. Paul's.
No, sir, nothing in the historic district.
Okay, nothing in the historic district.
It would only apply to churches in residential districts, residential zoning districts, which I think we counted and it was something like 7 in residential districts throughout town. Even now, the way this is written, this only applies to residential, so any church in a commercial or industrial or anything else would have to abide by the industrial or commercial restrictions that are allowed there.
And the rule we have now is the one that was set by our planning team when they put it into effect.
From when it was redone, it could have been done before then and just gone over from the old one, but it is included in our UDO now.
Is that fair to the churches that are not in the historic district?
They have to abide by different standards within the historic district. Anything on the external of a building is subject to approval by this Preservation Commission. So that's why it wasn't included in this, and it'll be a separate kind of approval through the Preservation Commission.
Are the rules tighter on churches within the historic district?
Yes, sir.
As opposed to what we're talking about here?
Yes, sir.
So we estimate between 5 and 7 churches that this could apply to, that is in residential districts, that is not included in the historic district or some other kind of commercially zoned space. that could request something like this. Second is that when we reviewed the other town ordinances, I think Wayne is exactly right, they were extremely forbidden. Some type of oversight or completely loose cannon, where there was no restrictions. And so knowing that, we tried to utilize what we could find that was the most reasonable for the additional language to be added, which did include basically an intensity measurement to not allow these signs to be visible at a certain threshold at those property lines. That there were restrictions on use, and we actually talked to one of the applicants about this, that is something that can be controlled. You don't want this thing going off between midnight and 1 and 2 and 3 in the morning. So for us, we tried to find a time window where folks would be either coming to and from the church or at a church maybe after hours. And that's why we recommended 10 p.m. to 6 p.m. is kind of a no-go zone for the sign to be on, which they did advise that they could control. And what we didn't want is some type of standalone sign that wasn't the primary indicator of that religious space. So that's why we also opted to add that it's basically going to be your primary sign, and it has to include landscaping to be a part of the entire field. And we did reduce the size to less than 50% of the total space. So, I mean, we scaled it back from 32 square feet down to like 16.
Yeah, so it would be, and that's something that's, can be lowered as well. The planning board came up with 32 square feet. That seemed to be at the height maximum of what other municipalities allow. It can be scaled back, but only the electronic portion can be only 50% of what the max allowable entire sign is. So if it's 32 square feet, it only has 16 square feet of electronic space. If you decide to reduce it to 28 square feet, it can only have 14. So
What about setback from the road?
it'd be a minimum of a 10-foot setback from the road.
But we're only doing this because somebody's asking. I mean, we're not doing this because a consultant said it was a good thing, or the residents thought it would be a good thing. I mean, I guess, so this is just advertisement.
Yeah, this is one particular church requesting this amendment because our UDO didn't provide for anything within the residential district.
I mean, I just don't think it's a good idea in a residential area to have a lit sign for an advertisement. When people are spending all their money on their houses, I mean, anybody wants to get to anywhere, they do a Google, they do a search. Yeah, search a map, and it takes you right there. I mean, I'm not sure that it really helps anything. I mean,
Has there been any objection from the residents in the surrounding area?
I haven't heard any.
Is your objection,
I think it's a
any
step.
lighted sign or just the digital part?
I definitely think digital, I mean, if it was light shining down, that's better, but I just don't, we don't allow these businesses to do all that. I just think that I don't think there's any need to do this at this point. I mean, don't make it bigger. It's better to shrink signs. I mean, I think that where we're heading as a town is that we have less of that stuff instead of more of it. And I think it opens doors for all kinds of stuff. And we'll allow a great big sign on a church, but not allow it on a commercial building. And I mean, I just think that and especially if in neighborhoods, especially that neighborhood where you have people across the street and next door, and I just don't think it serves any function.
Would it affect any church's signs that are standing as of now?
Most of them are standardized. I haven't got out measuring with a ruler, but most of them, the way it depends on how you interpret how the UDO is. They may be a little bit larger than what's allowed in residential areas, but they're all that typical size sign that's used now that's very low to the ground. We're talking about freestanding signs, not anything on a building or one of your monument signs.
It seems to be working well.
Yeah, I mean,
Any other questions or comments? Hey, Dwayne, is it requesting church or requesting party here tonight, any representatives? If they are, do they want to speak?
I don't see them, no, sir. They were at the last one, and I sent them an email, so I didn't know if they were going to be here or not.
Okay. All right, thank you, Dwayne. Stay close by in case we have some more questions. At this time, I'm going to open the public hearing on this particular issue on the text amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance. That hearing is open. Are there any persons that wish to comment on this proposed text amendment?
Have we asked what church it was?
It, Dwayne, it was,
First Assembly.
First Assembly. All right, there being no other comments or questions, I'll close the public hearing portion of this agenda item. At this time, I think we've asked all the questions that we need to ask. So at this time, we would open it up for further comments and deliberation. If you said what you want to say. Okay. Any other persons? Patrick, you got something?
To Councilman Dixon's point, I mean, it affects the people driving by and understand what he's saying in terms of aesthetics for what we're going for. But do the residents that live near there, have we heard anything from them? Have we reached out to them? Do we want to get their opinion on this? You know, because they're going to be the ones most affected. I mean, everyone driving by will be affected in some way, but those people that live right around there who might not know what's going on, might be a bit surprised to see a sign like this go up and say, wait a minute, I didn't know anything about it.
And that's, I could, so,
Well, and it would also be any other church, because once this thing's done, then everybody can, you know, get 7 great big signs go up.
yeah, this is a comprehensive, this would include everything, not just this particular church. It would change for every church in a residential district.
Councilman Sellers, is there a motion in your comments, or are you are you ready to proceed on the vote, or is that concern of yours great enough?
I mean, I do have a councilman beside me who lives around there, and I'd be interested to hear what he thought, maybe some of his neighbors thought.
Well, I agree with what you just said. I would like to know what the neighborhood says too, but if this gets opened up to other ones, we're gonna be right in the same boat. So, you know, if this one gets approved, it's approved to all of them. So then you gotta ask all those neighborhoods, not just ours.
But at that point in time, if this is approved, it's already approved.
That's what I
And so
mean.
at that point in time,
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to deny. Can I do that?
we have to take action on it, and after our deliberation, anybody can make a motion to approve it or deny it. So we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Councilman Dixon,
Yeah, sorry. I know we're just talking about approving this one, but we're really not. We're talking about approving all of them.
It is, and that's one thing that we have to do, is
I know.
try to realize that it's just not
I just, they
necessarily
want to bring it on back and really
Yeah.
invite everybody, I think that's fine, but.
I'll second that.
Yeah, we got a second. Councilman Costa had a comment or
I don't know if
question.
you'd be opposed to tabling it to have some discussion with the church and the surrounding residents of the church.
Because I think we have to have because I think we have to have seven thing, and then anybody who puts a church in a residential area, you also, I mean, it just opens a door that I don't think we need to open.
And yet, Corey or Dwayne, could y'all illuminate some of those other churches that were in locations for us that we could see something like this if we did pass it?
Or it could be an application process that we implement for signs for any church.
They would be required to fill out a sign permit anyway, and then that's what kind of set this off. So there would be some sort of application requirement needed that would then, I would have to apply to the UDO and make sure it meets the standards passed by council.
But like a manual, Baptist Church could request the same thing if we approve this. And what are some of those other churches is my question. The 5 to
Do you
7.
know those off the top of your head?
Not off the top of my head, but we can gladly generate a map that shows.
Is the one up in, like, how far up, Randall Street is the historic district?
It goes.
Church Street?
It weaves in church. to Gale.
So it wouldn't be that, it wouldn't be the one on the corner of Peterson, they could put one up.
Yes.
I mean, so I'm just saying, it's just, you know,
I think it would be worthwhile for us to generate that map to see. I think one that comes to mind for us is off of Johnston and Cabarrus. It's very heavily residential. That is an active congregation that would eliminate that entire area.
The streets are narrow.
If this type of
is that right on Johnson Street?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're the ones that have great food like once a month. Best food I've ever eaten.
Better in Israel too.
So, my question would be, we got a motion, we got a live motion and a live second. Procedurally, so, I'm not understanding that there is a,
I don't think we need to table it at this point. I was just trying to get a better idea of where this could happen, just for my own sake in terms of making a vote on this.
So-
I have the same aesthetic concerns that Councilman Dixon has. I mean, we just had architects from Charleston come talk to us about how to preserve an old-timey town, a historic town, and I think this would go flat out against everything they told us that we should be doing.
And so, see, procedurally, we would have to, unless the motion is withdrawn, take action. But I do think that it's worth noting that we could share those locations with council for some type of reconsideration or reapplication at a later date.
So I think I'm hearing what I think is a majority of our body speak, and I think what I'm hearing is, I've heard Mr. Dixon withdraw his motion, so again, we got a motion and a second, so at this point in time, if there's no further conversation, I would call the vote. All in favor of Councilman Dixon's motion to deny this application for a text amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion
And
to
if they
deny
want to bring it
carries.
back and have something that has a specific size and, you know, that would work for all the areas, and any other person that wants to build a church has got to work for that. I mean, I'm not necessarily opposed to the change, I just think this one isn't researched or thought about enough. I mean, because you go in these other towns, they have those things flashing and
Going down the road sometimes, man, they're
Yeah.
blinding when you, late at night.
yeah.
You said in that text amendment, it did have something where it restricted the hours that would be eliminated, is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
So the
10 to 8, I think, 10 to 6.
Is it 10 to 6 or?
I know the cutoff at night is
10 p.m. to
10.
6 a.m.
Yeah. Okay, well, we voted on that, and if we need to readdress it, or if something comes before us again, we'll take it under consideration at that time. So, all right, the next agenda item is the consideration of case number MSUP 25-04, which is a major special use permit application from the applicant Edenton Holding LLC for a proposed 144-unit apartment complex at 1311 Paradise Road, which is also identified as PIN number 7805 00858917. And I think Councilman Bond had indicated to me that he wished to be heard before we proceeded any further.
I thought we agreed that we weren't going to allow any more apartments within the town of Edenton, because all our apartments turns up into projects, and that's where we get all of our trouble from, our shooting, our drugs, our fighting and everything. And we're short of help on the police force now. And all these neighbors that you see back here coming from Paradise Road and Morris Circle, they are in disagreement with allowing this in their neighborhood because they want to keep their neighborhood safe and clean the way it is. They don't mind individual homes coming into the neighborhood, but they don't want to see this type of apartments coming to the neighborhood.
Well, and I think this plan doesn't have enough road cuts, it's like, sending people into a place that, I think it has all kinds of problems. And I'll tell you that, I think that it could be done so well, where it's safe and where it's informative, but if I were the applicant, I would withdraw it and bring it back in a form that would be something I think everybody would like.
Well, just a couple comments, and then I can offer some suggestions. As to Elton's comments and also to the neighborhood's concerns, that's one of the purposes of the hearing, is so that we can hear from the applicant and also hear from the neighbors about what their objections are. My next comment would be, it would appear to me from the comments that Councilman Dixon and Councilman Bond have made, and some comments some other people have made about this agenda item, that it may be appropriate to table this for more study and other things. And I know people don't like it when we table things, but when there's an issue of this much importance to the community at large and to the neighborhood, and where councilmen have so many questions, to me, that's always a signal that it's probably not the best time for us to vote on something if we feel like there's more things that we need to work out. And so it should be assigned to the applicant, to the neighbors, to the public, and to all of us, that if we want to do that, if we want to table it, that's a sign that we're taking this seriously, and we just need to look at this some more. So,
Are you looking for a motion?
if that's,
Before, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Before that motion, do we have any time constraints on us as a council as far as this application for the special use permit goes?
we do, and it's,
Do we have time to table it?
We have some time because the application is a little bit different from what we've seen before.
How much time?
6 months from the, you have to look and see, but it would be 6 months from either the initial application or when we got a revised application.
But when did we get a revised application? Sorry,
March, I need to look, I'm going off this very quickly, it was March 6th, I believe, that I've written down. I will look.
In any event, Dwayne, it's your recollection that we're not in danger of any violation of that time period?
I don't believe so, sir.
Because if it were in December or January, then we're in a zone where that may be a concern. But,
It would have to be within the next month and a half, I would say, without just doing quick math.
So we have to find a better way.
Yeah, I think we have the application in our,
It looks like it's signed March 6th.
it was March 6th.
So we got 6 months, so we got plenty of time.
Did someone make a motion?
You know, I'll be applicant to,
Okay, we've got a motion from Councilman Bond, and we've got a second from Councilman Dixon. All in favor of the motion to table the case number captioned MSUP 25-04, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion to table that carries, and we'll just continue talking about it, and Dwayne and Corey continue to have conversations with the applicant, and town council continue to receive comments from the community and also the neighborhood.
and Mayor,
Yes, sir.
we should, thank all the people that came for this and aren't gonna hear anything on it, and the applicants themselves who've been waiting.
Yeah, we certainly are not trying to do anything to inconvenience anyone here, but it's an important issue, and we take it as important. Next, we move to our committee meetings. Tonight, we have 4 agenda items under the administrative committee, which is chaired by Councilman Miller.
Thank you, Mayor.
Correct? Thank you.
We have 4 items we need to take business on tonight. First one is the fire marshal job description classification. At our May 27th council committee meeting, we discussed town staff's request for the creation of a full-time fire marshal position at a salary grade 21 be included in the 25-26 fiscal year budget. At this time, I'd like to make a motion that we approve staff's request.
Got a motion? How about a second?
Second.
Got a motion and second. Are there any questions or comments either of Councilman Miller or administrative staff?
Have we ever had a fire marshal? Yeah.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Well, who handles those duties as of now?
Is this a shared position or another volunteer? We have a part-time staff member that we utilize with the county.
This fire marshal report directly to the fire chief.
Yes.
We had one that was retired.
We do have a already retired, now part-time on staff for another department that now works with Chowan County to do this.
You ready to go?
Okay, any further questions or comments? All in favor of the fire marshal job description and classification, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right,
Okay,
Craig?
Second item is the GIS Special Projects Program Manager job description and classification. Also at our May 27th Council Committee meeting, we discussed our staff's request for the creation of a full-time GIS Special Project Program Manager position at the same salary grade 21. Also be included in the 25-26 fiscal year budget. Make a motion to approve this town staff's request for this position.
Okay, we've got a motion, we have a second. Second. We've got a motion and a second. Corey, I know several councilmen that I talked to would like some more detail on the need and the actual duties of this. If you could speak to that before we vote.
And so we spoke on this just a little bit. So the GIS piece is really the surface layer of what we visually see from maps. But one thing that we have seemed to overlook here is the data portion of this. And when I say that, I mean, it's one thing to know where a utility pole is in our 4,400 customer network, but it's another thing to know the age of the pole, the condition, the details around the tag number, as well as any of the equipment it may house up on that pole. That's just one hypothetical that is embedded there. When we talk about the data piece, you think about how often customers may change for particular addresses for utility services with or outside of town. Just the data piece of that needs to be able to communicate not only to our billing, but now with the way our automated meter system works for our water system, as well as our soon-to-be launched electric. It's not just knowing that there is that asset at that house. It is also knowing the details and the data that goes along with it. That being a primary part of this person's job. The project that we're looking here, if you remember, I think we shared this, Councilman Turner, we used you as a guinea pig a few years ago when we tracked work orders, when we tracked things that have been done at a particular address. And we were able to share our utility cloud programming and how we're able to provide customer service and show when the work was performed, when the call was received. That is critical for us, and those type of things really take time. So the big piece of this, when we talk about our LGC response letters, and you look at some of the financial indicators, the age of assets is a big piece, particularly around our electric rates. The age of what needs to be replaced for our electric rates should be around 50% for the depreciable age of that asset, and we exceed 70. So without knowing the condition assessment, the age of the infrastructure that's in place, you can't correctly start to replace those items that will help with those financial indicators. We see this when we look at water and sewer rates, particularly for us. Our assets and depreciable amounts for these assets are extremely high. Think about what we've done. We have replaced multiple water treatment plants, multiple well sites, as well as a wastewater treatment plant project. those type of things, that type of data has to be logged, has to be monitored. And so the data piece of this is a huge portion of what we only see visually from a map. When we talk about special projects, Dwayne and I have talked about this along the lines of the milestones that must be followed for CDBG or for our asset inventory and assessment programming that we work with engineering groups on now. What this position will allow us for us to bring some of that in-house, keep those projects on timelines, and to make sure data isn't just time-stamped from yesterday at noon, because today at noon it's different. And so this will allow us to be able to manage and maintain and manage the change of that data. And so I think we should have probably included data somewhere in the title. It's very heavily in the job description, but that's one thing I don't want us to overlook. This guy or gal is not just going to be simply creating.
Will this be a planning department employee?
Yes. And from a
Even
plan-
though this person will be working with Hunter Chamberlain in electric?
Yes.
David Myers?
Yes.
Public Works?
As well as projects like our water meter change out, as well as projects like our electric meter change out, as well as projects as identifying and updating our stormwater maps, from a surveying perspective, and bringing that data in. This is something now that department heads get to as time allows.
I believe there's some grant writing
Yes.
duties here too.
Yes, when we think about, like the AIA programs that we've written grant requests to DEQ for asset inventory and assessment. That person should be well versed in, knowing where those funding are available and to be a successful writer for those applications.
Probably pretty important for storm control. I mean, we're always in that, gonna have one someday, hopefully not, but would they be involved with
Yes.
location
We
of?
did include some drone, asked to
Yeah.
be in there for, folks to help us with visual inspections for our routine maintenance, as well as when we need an emergency management situation and we need some type of documentation for FEMA. That's a perfect example of a special project that only happens every 4 or 5 years.
Are you concerned about finding this type of person?
Yeah, where do you find some of those? I mean, they specialize in this?
I do think, Councilman Carlson and I talked about this, I do think we have to be realistic in the amount of time we want this person to be in the office, because they're gonna be in the field a lot. But I think about before that, so a lot of this work can be done in a hybrid situation. I think that will open us up to candidates that have asked those types of requests before, like, would it be okay to have a day off a month to be able to work remotely, because it's just data analysis.
So you got somebody in mind?
Corey's always got something in mind.
Somebody back there.
All you gotta do is look at that little smile he put on his face, and you know you got something up. Okay.
Yeah,
In terms of budget implications, is this new money, or is it some money that's absorbed from not filling the position that previously served as a special projects manager?
Well, Bud was housed within our electric fund, so we're talking about 2 different accounts. This is a new position, it is a new expense. We tried to trim where we could in other general fund accounts to account for the head counts.
So did we not find someone, a purchasing agent for electric department?
We
Or
did.
hired someone?
And they focused just on the purchasing and procurement of.
But previously that was a dual role.
Yes.
That serves as that.
We're Bud had special projects when he was here.
Yeah, Bud wore many hats.
We're a historic town, but we need a state-of-the-art
Yes.
business, and I think it's important. I mean, you want it, I think you ought to have it.
Okay, we've got a motion by Councilman Miller and a second by Councilman Constant. If there are no further questions or comments, I'll call the vote. All in favor of the creation of the GIS and Special Projects Manager job description and job and classification, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries.
Mayor, the third item, administrative policies update in order to be in compliance with certain governmental laws and regulations as we enter the 25-26 fiscal year. 2 new revisions and 2 new additions need to be included in the town's administrative policies. The 2 new revisions are the travel training policy and the safety shoe policy, and the 2 new additions are the substance abuse policy and the clothing allowance policy. This time I make a motion to include the 2 new revisions and the 2 new additions into the town administrative policy.
Okay, we've got a motion, do we have a second? Okay, we've got a motion and a second. I think we discussed this at committee meetings at our last meeting in detail on the need for any other comments or questions. There being none, all in favor of the administrative policies updates as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, those policy updates carry and have been approved. And lastly,
Last item, personnel policy resolution. The town's updated personnel policy was presented to full council back in March 24th at our council committee meeting. The personnel policy resolution just affirms and approves those personnel policy changes which go into effect July 1st this year. This time make a motion to approve the personnel policy resolution.
we've got a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and second. Any questions of our manager or Councilman Miller, or any comments? There appearing to be none. All in favor of the personnel policy resolution that was presented March 24th, 2025, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That resolution passes.
Mayor, that's it for the administrative committee.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your hard work on that, Councilman Miller. The next item of business is new business. And I'll turn this over to Manager Gooden for his report on the lease agreement with Chowan County Sheriff's Office.
Thank you, Mayor. So you've seen an initial draft of lease that I have been working on with Chowan County as well as the Sheriff's Office to develop an agreement for dry storage of the Sheriff's official water response boat. This boat is used by law enforcement, emergency management, and the local dive team countywide. I know that we have had some issues before with our staff and PD where we work together on the sheriff on items that happened here along Edenton Bay. I have worked with the county and town attorney to present a draft tonight. I did receive a handful of revisions from the county attorney, so what we're requesting here is an approval on the final version to be corrected and agreed upon by the county. The county is planning to vote on the lease itself on the 16th, is what I was advised.
What were some of those revisions?
I've got a long list. Most of it was just wording where things like the town were added or corrected versus the commission.
So nothing major.
Nothing major.
No substantive changes or
Nothing
term or
substantive.
anything like that. So do we take action on this tonight, or
Yes.
do we wait?
We take action.
Subject to,
Yeah, the final draft being presented by her. That way, I can work with Kevin and the Sheriff's Department to finalize any lease, and we'll have that approval already done.
and for informational purposes, that will be shared back with us.
Yes. And just so you know, this is our standard lease for any of the slips that we've used here at the waterfront. And what made it a little different than what they had for like Captain Mark is because it was between 2 municipalities. And that fed to most of the changes that Hood had advised on, just wording because it was one municipal system leasing to another municipal system.
And it's the same rate that anybody else can.
The rate was for the first year for all the initial improvements as far as the docking and the lift to keep that vessel out of the water. Long-term, it would be $1 annual renewal for us for 5 years.
And which slip specifically is it going to go?
Where the old Chowan County sailboat was stored for years and years and years before it was sold.
The last one,
On the first one on your right.
the first one.
When you walk out there. And this was one of the questions that we did receive at the last public comment, and I was going to chime in here, what do we plan to do to address some of the concerns around the increases we're seeing in your activities with sound, decibels, with no wake zones, as well as age restrictions on boats being rented or used, here openly. And so we feel like this is a good opportunity because we don't have a police boat or jurisdiction beyond a handful of poles out there to partner with the county to help with some of that marine traffic.
All right, there being no further questions or comments, all in favor of entering into this lease agreement with the Chowan County Sheriff's Office, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yeah, I think we made a motion, but I'll make a motion that we approve it, contingent on those provisions.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next, Corey, you still maintain the floor. We've got our town manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. At the May 13th meeting, there were a total of 2 public comments, one from Ms. Groper. Ms. Groper asked about 2 items, one the crosswalks from Broad Street, as well as the no wake zone, sound decimals, and age limits around some of the boat traffic. I did reach out to NCDOT, and they advised the crosswalks would not happen as part of this paving cycle. And they would need to finalize the pedestrian crosswalk study to share the factors for the town to consider as far as what types they would like to see after that. We should have this report back, and then they confirm that by the end of June. And at that point, we'll know all the options between typical painting, artistic painting, brick pavers versus a stamped colored asphalt. So that will kind of give us what we could expect, and here's how you get to it.
So that was received in an open manner. They seem to be open to.
But I did want to share that we have already started working with them around the stoplight intersections. And this was initial priority. We've already completed some of the town's initial work with sidewalk replacements and installation around some of these. And so if you remember, Virginia Road and Clare, Virginia Road and Loop, Virginia Road and Granville, Virginia Road and Broad. Those are the first 4 that we do expect something to start at sooner. We're working with both DOT staff on that now. They're in constant communication with Public Works around their timelines. But for the east-west streets, they said there is an impact, a safety factor for our east-west streets along Broad. We need to get an idea of what our foot traffic counts look like coming through there. One thing for us to consider that they did share, if you take note of the green pedestrian high-vis signs that you see near the high school now, they did advise us that for these type of crosswalks, those type of signages would be added at every location. So you really need to think about signs and the volume of what you could see down for the pedestrian crosswalk. So they did want us to know that up front. So there's some pros and cons there that we need to take into consideration. I have spoken with CAMA, and they pointed me to the Wildlife Resource Commission on who would actually place those buoys out there. They're supposed to determine the locations of where these no-wake zones are based on setbacks. And so I'm waiting to hear back from them, and we should be able to ask them about the age restrictions and the sound, the carrying of the sound. And we'll also have a discussion with the Sheriff's Department about that, if their vessel was to be docked here locally, what are they planning to do on weekend to assist with that if the Marine Patrol isn't out there to enforce it. Second comment we received was from Ms. Lori Dablow. She spoke on the May 4th shooting event, and she specifically asked how does the town plan to direct additional resources and time and money to prevent crime and its root cause within our community. The town of Edenton Police Department will continue to be highly visible and on active patrol throughout our town. This includes traffic and foot patrol for these officers. The police chief has made it a mission that the department be present and to make the public aware that they are actively engaged in all places within our town. Officers have actively engaged traffic patrol to establish and monitor our entrances and exits. We also increase salaries to help with recruitment, and the chief has developed a plan to utilize some of these officer vacancies as a community officer to establish a local presence within areas of high poverty or high crime. We continue to utilize relationship building to foster trust with these residents and their families, and will continue with the supporting of community events. We also send a message that we will not tolerate these type of mindless and criminal acts in Eden. The PD, the Sheriff's Office, and surrounding agencies will continue to share intel from each other and will continue with the state and federal court system to prosecute. It's very simple. We will not tolerate individuals to act this way in Eden, period. Items considered timely and important. I did have questions from, one thing to note here, Mayor High and I have also been doing some outreach and working with some of our local communities around grassroots initiatives, and we have found some that are focused more towards youth, and we're trying to find some local support for it. Mayor High, you got anything you want to add on that?
We're just reaching out to community organizations and also other governmental entities like the school board, school system here in town, and trying to identify any programs that we might be able to help support that would address this issue.
When I look at items considered timely and important, Mayor High asked about two items, one being the stoplight timing, and two, the sales tax range and information from the Chowan County. The first response, if you notice that NCDOT did install the sensors, and these issues should be resolved now. Second, Chowan County did see an increase of 13.2% in sales and use tax, and this was over a 12-year window. You were wondering on the time frame of that. However, we did see larger increases beginning in 2021. Roughly, you say, what does that mean? Well, prior to 2021, we saw annual increases of around 100,000 each year. And if you look at post-2021, we're seeing increases around 300,000 per year as far as collections. One thing to note, I did want us to look at that pre-21 date and post-21 date. I did get some of the information today from Chess in Virginia. And for us, for fiscal year 24-25, fiscal year 23-24, fiscal year 21-22, and fiscal year 2021, we did exceed in those 4 of those 5 years, and we exceeded the state averages from what we've seen from our peers. We were very close in 22-23. Thank you, Virginia and Chess, for pulling that together. I know you spoke on that when you did your Main Street update. Councilman Dixon asked about the remaining properties of Preservation, North Carolina, and the Cotton Hill area, and two, he wanted to compliment just how busy downtown has become. We just talked about the last 5 years worth of data, and thank everyone for all that hard work. Did want to let everyone know that I do know PNC about setting up a Zoom meeting to share some of the local expectations between the council and the residents of the Mill Village. This call is scheduled to be early next week. I'll ask some of our council members to join us on that call with PNC. And I did want to reiterate, downtown is doing amazing, and we continue to see growth for businesses and third spaces for residents. We're very proud of the progress we have made, and we hope to have more big additions to our downtown district over the next year. Councilman Turner asked about the railroad meeting for the abandoned section, as well as the town's paving schedule. Mr. Saylor does plan to visit Edenton July 17th and 18th. Dwayne and I plan to do site visits of the locations and review his findings to date. The second item, we did include funding for paving and sidewalks in the current year's budget. I have asked Public Works to review the original 2017 list to see where we stand. We took a peek at that today. I did not see any Category 1 streets from that. There was a small number of Category 2 that were only delayed for a larger project. David is working on a presentation to share with the council. One thing I do want to keep in mind is that we need to compare this list to our capital improvements list for water line replacement. to see what areas need both. We need to do one before the other. We do plan to perform a paving condition assessment this year to determine the next list and check the previously paved roads. This will be one of the main special projects to begin with for this GIS and Special Projects Manager. As of 2017, we have paved 49 roads or sections of roads. This excludes the NCDOT streets. I did get that together for you guys this afternoon. Councilman Zeller asked about the crosswalk. We've already responded to that. We're waiting on the study for the east-west streets. And that time we will consider the various options we have for what type of side crosswalks. Councilman Miller asked about the EV charging stations. As of May 9th, the system appears to be communicating. I don't have a date for the chargers to be online, but I did advise Hunter today to turn them on. The software working or not. And I tested them before the meeting and heard the beep. They work there. So those should be on tomorrow. Councilman Costin asked about the Colonial Park site design with Harbor Towns. I did speak with Nick Dotto, and he has requested to come and speak at the first meeting in July with the council. He will update the council on the operations and any improvement plans as to date. That's all I have tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Corey. Appreciate your hard work and following up on that each month. The next agenda item is items considered timely and important. I'll start over here, Aaron. You have it right now. Okay.
I have one for that, though.
It'll come back to you when you get on, right?
I think the list of, meeting will indicate small comments.
Yeah, exactly. Elton, have you said what you needed to say?
Oh, no.
Just getting warmed up. Huh?
Yes.
All right.
Can we call his name now? Town manager, Corey. There are some roads in the town of Edenton that are state supported. Are the state gonna hit all these roads before they move out?
The last remaining state road that we have is the section on North Broad near the railroad. The Coke Avenue was paved earlier this year. MLK was paved about 3 or 4 years ago. Coke Avenue, Broad Street was just completed except for that one section. Virginia Road was paved in 2018, 2019. I don't think, other than us revisiting Granville for the northern section, I don't think we have any more state roads that are left.
Hereford Road is not a state road?
Paradise Road.
Paradise is a state road, that's correct.
I was
Hereford
gonna
is
get to
not.
that one, but those two are state roads, aren't they?
Old Hertford is not, Paradise is.
Oh, Hertford is not?
No, it was exchanged sometime within the last 10 years. It was a town-owned road.
Oh, when the town will pay Hertford Road now? When the state gonna pay Paradise Road?
And I was told that, Paradise Road is gonna be paid after, Boyd Street, and Paradise Road has not been paid since like 14, 15. It's supposed to be done like every 10 years.
We will follow up and find out about Paradise Road, but the silver lining for Old Hertford is it does not have curb and gutter, so it will be very favorable for resurfacing.
And that's on us.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so when we gonna get curb?
You're killing me, Councilman, you're killing me.
It's in the budget. I'm with you for that. Yeah, you've been on here, you've been saying how many years?
Huh?
You've been on the council how many years?
13 or 14, I don't know.
We need to get that money.
And I was very excited to have a conversation with David this afternoon to find out he was putting together a presentation, so we can talk about this. We can get into July, we can look at the funding amounts that are remaining, we can start pricing out non-curb and gutter roads versus curb and gutter roads.
Okay, and don't forget Camaras, Johnson, and all in that section too.
And I did take a peek at his map. That neighborhood as well as Moore Circle is a part of the I&I Phase 2 project for sewer rehab.
I was gonna say more
So,
circle mix.
Some of the paving needs to hold for the sewer line replacements. If you remember, we had at least tried to pave some of the entrances on First, Second, and Third off of Oakland and Broad, but we haven't done any of the interior because we're not sure just how much will get torn up for the sewer.
When is that work going to be scheduled?
I have asked for an update from the Whitman Company on that. They have submitted plans to the state. We have everything we need, and sadly, our project engineer that we were working with before has moved on to another university system. And so I'm waiting to, we're ready to proceed. I mean, everything.
We're that close?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't get some work done in my boy. I'm running again. What you trying to do?
No, sir, but those items were listed as to be paid with the sewer project being complete.
Councilman Moore?
Just had some concerns about traffic lines on Broad Street. I've had many people come to me and say it's sort of, at night, it's kind of hard to see them. Are they going to be redone?
They are, and those are temporary, and I was
Oh, they are
surprised to
temporary,
see how good the temporary lines for the section of Granville turned out. And I don't know if it's because of age since the paving, but I do know that those are temporary lines and that the permanent striping will be made, and I don't have the date.
Will that be done before the crosswalk?
Yes.
Councilman Sellers? All right. Councilman Turner?
This is to Corey and council. I really would like us to start looking at a policy, and it's not to make anybody mad, but maybe a policy of maximum number of hours that can be spent on employees for subjects, topics, or just in general. I think we're overloading some of our employees sometimes with just, some citizens just overload them. And I've looked into this, I've looked at other municipalities, and there's a lot of policies out there that give you a maximum number of hours that you can spend per year.
Per person, like.
Yeah, we got 4,500 people. If every one of those had 100 hours, that would really overload them already. So I worked a little bit with Mr. LaFawn, talked to Corey a little bit today and last week, and there's things out there that we can look at. And I would just like us to address them and look at them. And bring it together and really study it and see if it's something we're going to do. I know there's one in Williamston. I know there's one in Apex that I looked at. And they've been brought on for certain reasons. So I think it's time for us to look at it.
So, I mean, I just want to get clear, so it's like, if a member of the public asks, just continually ask questions.
Correct.
There's a time which you say, we can't answer any more of your
Correct.
questions, so we've got to answer somebody
Yeah.
else's. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Appreciate it very much. Next, our agenda item is a closed session pursuant to NCGS 143-31811, subsection A4. The purpose of the closed session is to discuss matters relating to the location or expansion of industries or other businesses in the area served by the public body, including an agreement on a tentative list of economic development incentives that may be offered by the public body in negotiations. For that purpose, I would entertain a motion to go into closed session and a second. Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor of going into closed session for those purposes, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attendance tonight.
You have a good night.